Let's look at January then, because not much happened for Liverpool. There wasn't much to report on. All quiet. I mean, there's always going to be fans who want to see signings and want to see Liverpool strengthen. But it strikes me as pretty reasonable stance that the club has taken in this window. There's been no surprises as far as you and I are concerned about what Liverpool have and haven't done in this window. It just seems to be a pretty reasonable stance they've taken.
Yeah, and I know that there's always speculation. It's driven by the owners and them not wanting to spend or whatever. But it can, tell you very much from my understanding that it's been driven by the football staff, and the manager really doesn't feel like he needs anything at the moment. He knows there are areas of this squad that could be strengthened, but it's not anything that's desperate, and it can wait till the summer. We know then that, for example, left back's going to be on the agenda. That's very, very obvious. But I think you saw in Andy Robertson's performance at Bournemouth at the weekend, he's not the disaster that's being made out sometimes. He's part of the best defence in the league in terms of goals conceded and underlying goal, expected goals as well. So, I know he's had some performances this season where it's not been perfect, but he's still a very good player, and he's still very capable of, if you manage his minutes, of getting the best out of him still. So that for me was the only area really Liverpool, you could say it would have been nice if they addressed, but they've taken the decision not to do that. And then any other area in the pitch really is all about, it's going to be, when the summer comes, one in, one out really. So I totally get why the managers wanted to stick with what he has and ride that till the end of the season. At the end of the day, what he has at the moment is what's got him to the top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League, semi-finals of the Carabao Cup, and obviously progressing in the FA Cup as well. So, why not go with that until the end of the season? I think that was absolutely the right move.
Yeah, I suppose playing devil's advocate, the slight risk is, if Gravenberch goes down with an injury tomorrow, you look a bit light in that section. And that's why quite a lot of fans would like to have seen a bolster in that area of the pitch. Obviously, a lot easier said than done. But also, as you say, it's a bit of a calculated risk for them. That the chances of that are relatively small. As you say, they've got to the top of the Premier League and Champions League with this squad. So they're willing to take that calculated risk because it's quite a small one in theory.
The thing I would say as well is that one thing I don't think people have kind of got onto yet is that the need for in defensive midfield is completely different to what Liverpool considered it to be 9 months ago. Obviously going into that summer, they thought that they wanted Zubimendi to play that role, but Ryan Gravenberch's emergence has kind of come as a nice surprise, not just to us, but internally as well. It wasn't always the plan for him to operate in that role and to play as well as he has. It's just been a bit, sometimes you do get lucky a little bit. And so his emergence, I'd be amazed if Liverpool go for a top line defensive midfielder of the Zubimendi. I mean, they've not rivaled Arsenal for him again this time for that obvious reason, because they don't feel they need one. Ryan Gravenberch for them now is in that status of a kind of Virgil van Dijk, Mo Salah, plays 50 games a season, undroppable basically. So the guy you're going to have behind him who's going to be cover there is only ever going to be Wataru Endo. And for me, Endo again, it's quite an underrated backup in that position. This is the guy who helped Liverpool. They kept them in the title race up until the very last weeks of the season, where they kind of gassed out last year. Helped them win a trophy last season as well. So you've got a guy who was starting midfield for a team that did that last season as your backup option, who barely plays any games. That's not a bad backup to have at all. So I don't think Liverpool are going to go in there and think that they're going to get someone to compete with Ryan Gravenberch for next season. It's unrealistic to expect that, I think. I think they will go for, it would be more of a kind of, if Endo wants to go and play more frequently, you swap him in for someone of a similar profile, really. So, I think that need in midfield has changed. And you are, as a big club, you are at the hostage of fortune in situations like that. Yes, if Van Dijk goes down, you don't have a replacement. Yes, if Gravenberch, Salah, the same. But I mean, look at City with Rodri, because they can't have a player of that quality sat on the bench waiting for minutes, because it isn't going to happen. It has, and it hasn't happened over the last few years. There are several, Bukayo Saka at Arsenal, they don't have a replacement for him because they can't, because he's going to play 50 games a season. So that's just how it is. And I think with some players, you just have to accept that's what your depth is going to look like, and cross your fingers going into every season. But I don't think that was an area that Liverpool were looking to address or necessarily will do in the summer, to be honest, outside of someone leaving out of central midfield.
Yeah, I'm just thinking the names that sort of Liverpool have targeted over the last couple of windows in that position. maybe probably the strongest argument as to Liverpool's the strength in their recruitment policy, and the fact that they wouldn't go to that extra length maybe to get Zubimendi. Okay, maybe that wasn't so much about money, but the likes of Romeo Lavia, looking back, Moises Caicedo, they wouldn't go to those lengths. They wouldn't sort of abandon their philosophy. And I think you'd look back on all of them and say Liverpool were quite fortunate in the end, a blessing in disguise, to miss out on those players. Caicedo's got some great numbers, elite numbers this season in particular, but Lavia in particular hasn't got going at Chelsea. Caicedo, very slow start, and jury's still out whether he's worth over 100 million. So those sorts of near misses have actually proven to be good and strengthened Liverpool's argument for not breaking their transfer structure.
Yeah, and you'd say neither of those players, even Caicedo, when he's had some really good games this season, he's not touching Ryan Gravenberch's level at the moment. Ryan Gravenberch for me is literally one of the best in the world in that kind of double pivot at the moment. That's how good he is, and I thought he showed that against Bournemouth, by the way. So it does. It kind of shows you why it's not all about just throwing the money at it sometimes, and you do also. In recruitment and these decisions around it, you do also need a little bit of luck. For example, kind of Mario Götze not wanting to come to Liverpool, and so they pivot to signing Sadio Mane instead. That's a bit of luck that worked out for them. Jurgen Klopp needed to be convinced not to sign Julian Brandt and to go for Mo Salah instead. Again, that really went for them, didn't it? And if Jurgen had a little bit more power at that time, he might have wielded it, and Liverpool's recent history wouldn't have played out the way it did. So yeah, recruitment sometimes it's all about planning, and what they're trying to do constantly is not make bad decisions. And if you do that, you kind of earn yourself a little bit of luck, but good fortune is a massive part of it as well. And I think we've really seen that with Gravenberch, because nobody at Liverpool, even anyone close to it, expected that we get this level of performance this season. So yeah, they've been maybe a little bit lucky in that regard.
Yeah, in terms of outgoings on deadline day, there were a couple of them. Jayden Dan's probably the most notable one. What do you make of that one? Because I think it'll be good for his development to get more regular game time. I think he deserves more regular football, but he could have been a useful body with Liverpool in the second half of the season with Liverpool still in those 4 competitions.
Yeah, I think you think about the FA Cup game that's coming up. You think, a little bit of squad depth there. You wouldn't have to use anyone like you can keep Diaz out of it, Gakpo, whatever. That would be helpful. But I think they've just got to think about the long term, haven't they, and what's best for the player in terms of his development. And I think there's high hopes around Jayden Dan's, and so what's going to be better for him going out to the Championship and getting pushed around week in, week out, or just being in training and getting the odd minutes off the bench. And I thought we saw, I'm such a big fan of him, but I thought we saw in the PSV game, they were such a physical side where that, the stuff he could learn a little bit more about, which is kind of how to hold off his man and keep the ball and look after it in those situations. I think we saw really good evidence of that. So I think this would be a really good loan move for him. And I like that it's a team higher up the table that plays attacking football as well. So he'll get his opportunities to score goals, and I think he will as well. So I think it was a sensible decision from that point of view. But as you say, when those FA Cup games come around, it's one fewer body that you've got. But I think sometimes you just got to make those tough decisions. And like I say, I think it was the right one.
Yeah, maybe the best news for Liverpool from the window, transfer related, was that Arsenal didn't bring in a striker as well. So that's a boost, because they don't seem to now have the firepower that would get them on the run they need to go on to catch Liverpool.
Yeah, that was it. The only worry you had around Arsenal, I think, was kind of if they did something in the market that would really change the outlook for them, and maybe signing someone like an Ollie Watkins, who's just kind of would come in straight away and probably score goals. That would have maybe made you think, okay, they've maybe got a chance of coming back in. But as it is, no Saka, no Jesus for the rest of the season. Saka's going to come back, late March, early April. And even then, he's probably going to have to play himself back in a little bit. You just think that they're not going to score enough goals. And like, as I say, they scored 5 at the weekend, but I still thought it was in kind of fortuitous circumstances, to be honest. I still think they lack that firepower. And that means they have to be absolutely perfect defensively, which is impossible to do. So, I don't think they did enough to kind of make Liverpool worry about them.
Yeah, they're the type of team that can score lots of goals in lots of games. So it's the tight games that they need that striker to make the difference, which they're lacking. Okay, well, in terms of the contract situation, I mean, not much more to say, but we're in February now, final 5 months of the contract. Are you still confident that 2 of them at least hopefully will get done? It's getting close.
Yeah, it is. And I find it's kind of surprising that even Van Dijk isn't done at the moment. The one who I think his demands will be kind of, you know, not quite as big as the others, and it's not the Real Madrid factor there or anything like that. Slightly surprised that one's not done, but until they're not signed and until we kind of get a concrete development either way, I always lean to the idea that they'll get done. I mean, it went quite close to the wire really with Mo Salah the last time he signed, and eventually it happened. And I think with Salah and Van Dijk in particular, I just think it's a case of kind of, you know, that they are so desperate to stay that if there's going to be a collapse from any side on sort of demands, that maybe it will come from them and they'll just say, okay, you know, I'll sign at this. So we'll see. Like I say, until I hear otherwise and anything really truly concrete to say it's not happening, then I'm always in the mindset that they will sign and keep them. And I just think from Liverpool's perspective as well, like I keep saying, I can't see a world where they want to let the best player in the world go and the best centre half in the world go, and it would be arrogance to think that they could replace that for next season. So I still lean towards it getting done. And with Trent, he's the kind of wild card in terms of it's all about what he wants and whether he wants that experience. So we can't really predict there. But the other two, you'd like to think would get done.